If you think that beating procrastination is about learning how to do stuff you don't want to do, that is exactly why you keep procrastinating. I don't want to waste your time because I know what it's like to watch all of these YouTube videos about how to beat procrastination, read all of these books about productivity, do all these different techniques. Maybe they help a little bit, maybe they help the first time, but you always kind of go back to your baseline of procrastinating. You're always back stuck in that state where you don't know why you're wasting time. You have stuff you want to do, but you're not able to do it. I know what it's like to realize that something needs to change, or else you're not going to be able to achieve all the things that you really want to achieve in your life. I knew the work that I wanted to do in my life was going to be a lot of work. I really had to just sit down and figure out a system that actually works to cure my procrastination in a way that's sustainable for the rest of my life and the rest of my career. The first thing you need to understand is that there are 3 facets of you. There's 3 different little guys going on in your head all the time. You have to think of yourself as a business. When you're trying to be productive, you basically are trying to produce, just like a business would. So the first part of yourself is what I call the manager. The manager's job is to take care of everything that needs to be done or should be done. Now, you probably are the most familiar with hearing the manager in your head. The manager is the one that says, you need to get to work, you need to go to the gym, you need to stop procrastinating. So the manager doesn't actually do the work. The manager just makes sure that everything is running smoothly. Manager's main priority is to maximize outcome, maximize profit. Now, the manager isn't actually concerned with what they're doing. They don't really decide what the end goal of the company is. They don't run the company. They take in a goal and they say, this is what you need to do, and then they pass that along to the workers, which we're gonna get to. Because the manager's main priority is just maximizing productivity, the manager can get kind of harsh. You were supposed to go to the gym half an hour ago, you're being lazy. You need to stop scrolling on your phone, you're so stupid for doing this when you have a whole essay to write. The manager means well, they don't always understand the full picture, and they tend to get very frustrated when they're trying to control something and they're not able to fully control it. So the second part of you is the owner. This is probably a voice that you're less familiar with hearing. The owner owns the business. They have final say on all decisions. The owner's utmost priority is the health, safety, and the reputation of the business, making an overall well-rounded, sustainable company. So the owner's responsibilities are being able to make difficult decisions that nobody else can, balance priorities to make sure that everyone's happy, and create a good environment for the business. The owner is the voice that says things like, hey, how are you feeling? Are you happy? Is there something bothering you? Are you feeling too tired to work? What's going on? Because the owner is on top, the owner has the most responsibility over everything. And because of that, the owner gets very easily overwhelmed. And this can cause the owner to go on vacations a lot. It's a lot of work to deal with any conflicts that arise in the workplace, go off and hide until the situation of whatever's happening blows over. Third, we have the worker. Think of the worker not just as a worker, but almost more of like a machine in a factory. The worker is based solely off action. So like a machine in the factory, it doesn't make its own decisions. It's just programmed to do stuff and then it carries it out well. Also like a machine in the factory, it doesn't always do what you want it to do. Doesn't mean that it's the robot's fault because they don't get to control what's happening to them. They don't get to control what they make. So the main issue with workers is that when there's a problem, they're not able to easily explain to you what's wrong. The owner has to kind of come in and figure out what's wrong, and they have to guess, they have to be really patient, they have to explore all the different options to figure out what's wrong with the worker. So let's say you have a project you need to work on. You find yourself sitting down to do the project, but now you're just scrolling on your phone. This is what's really going on behind the scenes. The action that's actually happening, which is you being on your phone, is a reflection of the worker. But remember, the worker can't control what it does. It just takes input and it produces a certain outcome. If being on your phone is not what you intended to do, that means there's some sort of issue or malfunction with the worker that you need to fix. So the manager, whose only job is to run things and maximize productivity, is absolutely furious and cannot understand why the worker is not doing what the manager tells them to do. The manager can't get the work done. He's not a worker. Only the worker can get the work done, but the worker's not doing it. The only thing the manager can do is try to get the worker to do the work. The manager tries things like saying, you need to get your work done. Why are you on your phone? You need to get off your phone. It's just trying to do everything it can to get the worker to do what it's being told. It's not working. If anything, it only agitates stress the worker even more. Kind of are at a stalemate, which is being in that active procrastination. The owner of the company is nowhere to be found. In fact, as soon as he heard there was a project that needed to be worked on, he immediately booked a vacation because he was like, every single time there's a project, the whole factory, the whole business turns into chaos. Nothing works right. And I just hate dealing with the stress of that. Hopefully I'll just come back and the whole thing will be over with and I won't have to deal with it. Except that without the owner in charge, nobody really knows what to do. The reason that the manager can't run the show is because the manager's only priority is maximizing productivity. If you have someone in charge that is just prioritizing maximizing profit, then they might do things like use super cheap materials, upcharge as much as they can, cut out unnecessary expenses that maybe go towards the business being comfortable and pleasant to work in. Basically cut out everything they possibly can, which might kind of work for a sec, but it's not sustainable. You need to have a balance in the health of the company for it to be able to work long term. You need the reputation of good quality. You need the workers to be happy so they're able to do the things that they need to do. The owner, on the other hand, does care about the overall reputation of the company because it's his company. Spending money to make sure employees are happy, making sure that the quality is good, even if it means spending a little bit more money and getting less profit. So by now you've probably deduced that the key to running the good business of yourself is being an owner and maximizing productivity in a sustainable way. But how do you actually step in as an owner? Being an owner is really tricky. The manager and the worker both know exactly what their job is. No one ever really teaches the owner how to do their job because they own the whole business. They're not answering to anyone. No one's training them on how to do their job. A lot of times it's actually really overwhelming to be an owner, which is why the owner leaves so much. It's not his fault. It's just that it's really stressful. The first step to turning your business around and being a really good owner is to remember why you wanted to be an owner in the first place. You get to be in charge. You get to have final say. You get to make the decisions. You don't have to answer to anybody. You're not working for a boss and you have to do whatever crap the boss tells you to do that you don't agree with. You get to call the shots. Once you remember that, being an owner seems less scary and more exciting. The first step to being an owner is actually being excited to step up as the owner and remembering that this is something you want to do. It's not something that you should be scared of. In order to be an owner, you have to look at your worker that's not doing what it's told and figure out why. Be super calm, be super gentle, coax them gently and ask questions like, is there anything bothering you? Are you confused about what you're supposed to do? Do you feel neglected? Were you promised something that wasn't delivered to you? Are you disappointed? Are you tired? Are you hungry? Do you need to rest? Before the owner has even solved the problem, the worker already feels so much better because the worker feels valued. The worker feels like someone is actually taking time to pay attention to how they feel and not just telling them, go, 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 you're not working hard enough all the time. So right away, this makes it much easier for the worker to express what's wrong. The key as an owner is to be super, super patient. Make them feel like they're in a safe space to take their time to express to you exactly what's wrong so that you can fix the problem. I literally mean have a dialogue with yourself in your head. If you catch yourself procrastinating, pause, take a moment, step into your owner's shoes, ask the worker self in your head, hey, what's going on? Is there a reason you're on your phone? How are you feeling? Do you not really feel ready to work? Say those words to yourself in your head. A lot of times you'll find that just giving your worker that attention is enough for them to feel better and being ready to work. A lot of times it might just be a little bit of anxiety. The worker will say something like, well, I'm kind of like don't really want to do this project because like I'm a little bit scared if I'm gonna do a good job, but you know, now that I say it out loud, it doesn't really seem that scary. So I think I'm ready to work. A lot of the times it's just that simple and you can put down your phone and move on and feel good about it. However, sometimes your worker actually needs a real break. I find this happens to me when I tell myself, okay, tonight I'm just gonna hang out, have a fun time. And then when the time comes, I decide to do a little extra work. My worker feels not valued. My worker says, you kind of told me that we were gonna relax, so I feel like, you know, you're switching things up. You need to give your worker a break if they need it, regardless if you feel like you deserve it or not. Because remember, you're the boss, you make the choices. You need to make what's right for the rest of your company. Your manager might not agree with you. Your manager might say, you're being lazy, you have to get back to work, but you need to make it explicitly clear to your worker that it doesn't matter what the manager says to them. The worker has full permission to relax and rest for whatever the time frame is. They cannot feel bad about not doing work. Giving yourself an actual nourishing break is like a whole entire other video's worth of content. Here are the basics. Going on your phone can be a break, but I don't recommend it. It doesn't actually give you a satisfied feeling at the end of it. There's no completion. It's pretty rare that if you have a day off, you actually decide on purpose to go on your phone. You might find yourself on your phone, but rarely do you think, I can't wait to just go on my phone and scroll endlessly. You have to do something that like really, really nourishes your soul, something that is interesting enough that you don't feel the need to pick up your phone. If you're watching a show and you feel like you need to pick up your phone, the show isn't interesting enough and it's not going to properly nourish you. You're going to get to the end of it and you're not going to feel refreshed and relaxed. That's a really, really important part of this. You need to give yourself a really, really proper, intense break in order for this to work. You can't ever expect to be productive in the long term if you can't learn to do work while you're relaxed. That's the only way you're going to be able to actually willingly get stuff done. If you're able to relax yourself enough to feel like you're in a comfortable, safe space to do the work. This is a great method to solve individual procrastination accidents. But of course, it does take time. It does interrupt your day. The goal is to minimize these procrastination incidents as much as possible. It's still going to happen to you sometimes. It's not going to be as much of a big deal because you know exactly how to get over it. But there are things that you can do to prevent having these procrastination episodes. When you procrastinate, you might have this familiar feeling of being stuck between what you want to do and what you don't want to do. What you want to do is sit there on your phone. What you don't want to do is do work. But this is actually completely false. And that's why you keep getting stuck in procrastination. You cannot put your all into something unless you actually want to do it. If someone told me this like 5 months ago, I would just blow it off because I'd be like, well, that's great for you, but I don't know what I want to do. Here's why you actually do. When you are procrastinating studying for a test, let's say, you actually want to study because you want to know the material well, because you want to sit down at your test and feel relaxed taking it and not feel anxious the whole entire time. If you really didn't want to study, you wouldn't have bothered sitting down to study. Now, you might say, well, I don't want to study, but I need to study. Where do I need to orders come from? They come from the manager. The manager controls everything. I need to, I should, I have to. The manager does not make decisions for the company. The owner tells the manager what the company's direction is, and the manager's only job is to see through whatever the owner tells it to. The only reason that the manager is saying you have to study is because the owner told him that this is something we want to do. We value knowing the material. We want to know the material. If the owner says, I don't care about knowing any of the material for this test, the manager doesn't care either. The manager has no vested interest in any of the specifics. It all comes from the owner. Next time you feel like you have to do something that you don't actually want to do, you do actually want to do it. You just need to dig a little bit deeper in yourself because those instructions don't just come from nowhere. They come from yourself. Okay, so maybe it's true that I do want to study, but it doesn't make it any easier to actually study. It will, because you will do things much easier if you feel like you want to do them. Just by stepping up as an owner, you are affirming to yourself that this is something you care about. If we go back to the example of working on a project but procrastinating on it, you step in as the owner and ask your worker, hey, what's wrong? You are simultaneously affirming the fact that the owner cares enough about working on this project that it actually bothers to step in and make sure that it goes well. Just stepping in shows that you actually do care. You actually do want to do it deep inside, even if you're not admitting it to yourself. And here's the other proof. If you actually wanted to be on your phone, then scrolling on your phone would feel relaxing and rewarding. If you're scrolling on your phone and it feels numbing and anxiety inducing, then you don't really want to be on your phone. So if your worker keeps malfunctioning over and over again, meaning you keep finding yourself stuck in a state of procrastination consistently, it probably means that your worker isn't getting enough rest so that it can't actually perform the duties when it needs to, because it needs a balance of rest in order to feel refreshed enough and capable enough to do the work. The reason this happens so much is because the manager thinks that if the worker isn't working, it must be resting. So if the worker is only at 5% capacity of getting work done, the manager thinks, well, then it must be resting 95% of the time. We need more work and less rest because there's too much rest happening if there's not enough work happening. But the manager doesn't understand that there's a whole entire gray area where the worker isn't relaxing, isn't getting rest, but also isn't doing work. That's procrastination. You need to give your worker real restorative rest. And even when that voice pops in your head, you've been resting so much, you can't listen to it, because if you truly have rested enough, then you will be ready to do work and you will not procrastinate. Now, let's talk about maintenance. Just being simply aware of all of these things that are happening in your head, you're going to recognize them every single time they happen. When you start procrastinating, as soon as you start scrolling on your phone, immediately it's going to pop up in your mind because of the association. You're going to remember all of these different things that we talked about. Each time you decide to step in as an owner, you're going to feel more relaxed, you're going to get more done, and it's going to be easier and easier for you to continue that as a habit. Your owner is just going to show up for work way more often. And you will very quickly find, after doing this only a few times, it becomes even more automatic for you, to the point where when you decide to go and sit down and do something, you don't even procrastinate, you just go ahead and do it. And then when you do have those times where you're procrastinating, you can recognize it as something being wrong, and you can figure out what that thing is, and you're able to work past it. You need rest in order to be productive. And if you're not productive, it means you're not getting enough rest. And if you think you're getting enough rest, it means that the rest isn't good enough. So sometimes the way to get more done is to take a break first. Play hard and then work hard. And I would not be saying that if it hadn't worked for me personally. Well, we are at the end of the video. If you are unclear about any of this, please, please, please leave me a comment, because once this clicked in my brain and it actually worked, like I saw an immediate change in my productivity, I could not wait to start writing this video in hopes of sharing it with everyone else, because it's insane that like it's so simple. Like it really all is just in your mind. And as soon as you're able to kind of personify the different aspects of your mind, the manager, the owner, and the worker, as long as you're able to understand those, you are never ever going to have a problem with procrastination again. Thank you guys so much. I love you forever. Take care, subscribe, like, let me know what you think. Please, please, please. Bye-bye.